at 7 p.m. W5FC. W5FC repeater, PL 110.9. at 7 p.m. W5FC.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need the answer repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? Rosette T. My name is Carolyn, and I'll be your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. And stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the post sign breaking your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echo Link are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And please remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. And the net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, or where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, what can you see in the sky tonight, the featured constellation or object or topic, recent astronomical discoveries, space exploration and space history, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical questions and answers in the 73 round. Amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. But let's start with low power and short time check-ins. Please come with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Is
Delta, here.
is November 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen. Short time.
Alpha, Bravo Alpha, Andre in Dallas, low power.
Go 5, Tango Mike, Tony, low power portable in Dallas.
Golf 5, Papa, Mike and Richardson, 2.5 watts.
Let me see, I got N5, the net recognizes N5WOI, William, N5ABA, Andre, NT5TM, Tony, KG5P, Mike, and the others of the station said something about a star party, but you need to boost your power. I couldn't pick up your call, but that one station, try again, please. And maybe you can increase your power and try again on the next call. Do we have anybody else, low power or short time, before we move on?
Kilo, Foxtrot, 5, Quebec, Delta, Quebec, Eric, low power, please depart star party.
Okay, Eric, KD58, QDQ, got you that time. Okay, F5, QDQ, sorry. I've got you. I'll move on to some general check-ins. Please come now.
This is November 5, Bravo Bravo, Bill and Irving. In Dallas.
This is Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo Golf 5, Victor Juliet Papa, Robert and Richardson.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Let me get these first. N5BB, Bill, W5EBB, David. K5ANT, Alan. WB5OZL, Brenda. KG5VJP, Robert. And KF5ZBL, Bill. All right, do we have any general check-ins?
K5, KTX, Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
That recognizes K5KTX, Kelly. All right, let's move on to Echolink check-ins. Would you please come now?
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J near Weatherford.
Anybody else want to try it by voice? You can check in through the chat window. All right, KG5BZW, J, and recognize N5YEO Stephen, San Antonio, ZS1 OK, Alistair in Africa, let's see, KB5RHE, Brian, and KF5JHA, Chaz, and KG5QXI, Glenn, and Tom, I man, you'll be checking in by voice. Station, you were unreadable. Can you try again? Anybody pick up anything from that station? Maybe you can try again later, but we will move on to anybody wishing to check in by any means, please come now.
Five, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John, and my winter home in Coppell.
And that recognizes John, and all right, let's get started. This start with the general announcements. Does anyone have any announcements for the net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or just general interest to hams.
Tango Mike.
Okay, NT5TM, go ahead.
It's great to hear you. This is, of course, not the last net tonight. We do have the Afterglow movie net coming up at 10:30. We'll be discussing the 1979 science fiction movie, so-called Meteor, in which giant chunks of meteor bombard cinematically interesting parts of the Earth, only to be destroyed by ICBMs. It'll be tonight on this repeater at about 10:30. In addition, this is the first Sunday, so we have a meeting on the air tomorrow night right here at 7. This is open to any club member or any guest who'd like to join us. You don't have to be a member of the club, but we do hope you'll be willing to share what's been going on in your ham world. We have a Racy's training net tomorrow at 8 p.m., and, of course, a Ham Fixins net at 7 p.m. on Monday. This Tuesday is a club meeting. Tuesday, August the 7th, is a club meeting day. And FSQ digital modes will be at the Dallas Medical Center, northeast corner of Webb Chapel and LBJ, and we have more details on our meeting at w5fc.org. That's this coming Monday. Have a look at w5fc.org and the Afterglow Movie Facebook page. We have lots of fun stuff coming up in the next few days. Lots of chances to learn more about radio. This is NT5TM.
Thank you, and does anyone else have any announcements? We'd like to mention, if you're interested in satellite work, the AMSAT, that's Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., you need Echolink installed and be registered. But you can find this net under Groups and AMSAT. And a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. And this net originates in Houston. And then we have a Dallas AMSAT net every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. And of course, this Monday we have the DARC Ham Fixins net. All right, moving on to, and of course, every night we have the National Traffic System Training net at 6:30 p.m. So let's move on to tonight's Afterglow information. And Tom, K5ICX, I'll turn that over to you. K5ICX. Like Tom has some problems tonight. on to the next part, and then we can always come back to Afterglow. Do we have anybody that can give the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events tonight?
Like there might have been a double. Check and see if Tom's back.
Okay, Tom, are you back?
He's over on Echo Link, but he doesn't seem to be able to transmit on RF inside BB.
I see that. Okay, and Randy, I'll check you into. All right. Do we have somebody that can give the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events?
5 KTX.
Okay, Kelly, go ahead.
Well, this is K5 KTX, and Tom seems to be having transmitting issues, and I'm having receiving issues on RF. I can't hear anything other than on Echo Link, so hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can't, somebody can let me know over on Echo Link. Otherwise, I'm going to proceed on. So, the Texas Astronomical Society monthly meetings are held on the fourth Friday of every month, except for December, when there is no meeting, and also it's on the third Friday in November because of Thanksgiving. The meetings are held at the University of Texas at Dallas campus in Richardson. The meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. in the Science Learning Center building, which is SLC Sierra Lima Charlie on the campus map. The best place to park is in Lot H, where we've been given permission to park in orange, gold, or green spaces during the meeting time. You can park anywhere else as long as you choose a green space. Otherwise, you risk getting a ticket. The meeting includes programs presented by members or guest speakers and a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. The Astronomical Society also hosts observing parties every Saturday night beginning at sunset. Each week is at a different location for observing, so make sure you get the complete details for the Saturday night you wish to attend. You can go to texasastro.org, click on the calendar tab up at the top of the screen, and you can get all the details for the event that you would like to attend. Tonight's Star Party, I do believe, was a go tonight, and it's the Stargazer Party in Garland, which is at Spring Park, and so it's not too late. I'm sure they're just now really getting started over there since it doesn't get late. It doesn't get dark so late. So you can go to texasastro.org and click on the link for tonight's event and get the map that will tell you how to get there. It's off of Jupiter, somewhere over in Garland. And it's a pretty nice observing location. Also, there will also be a star party at the Farmers Branch Historical Park coming up on August the 17th, which is a Friday evening, and you can also get the details for that at texasastro.org. The second Saturday, which is next Saturday, in case you can't make it out tonight, will be at Frisco Commons Park. The third Saturday is at J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hill. And fourth Saturday is at Lakeshore Park in Rockwall. And all of these events are free and open to the public. And, of course, you want to make sure, especially this time of the year, bring your bug spray, sunscreen if you get there before dark. And it's a great way to learn about telescopes and about all of the special objects you can take a look at in the night sky, even in our urban location. So I believe that's it. Again, go to texasastro.org, and you can get all of the details about the organization as well as our events. This is K5 ATX.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Does anyone have any questions? All right, one more time. Tom, are you back yet? Apparently not, so we'll move on to the National Space Society events and activities. N5BB, Eddie, sure.
Short because I've got no new information this evening, Carolyn. Sorry, this is N5BB.
Do urge everybody to look. Can you give the website where people can look up stuff or find that organization?
Okay, let me give you some information then. The National Space Society next meeting, I guess I can tell you that. The next meeting is going to be on Sunday, August the 12th at 3:30 p.m. at the Spring Creek Barbecue. This is across the street from Irving Mall on Highway 183. It's at the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline in Irving. Again, that meeting time is 3:30 p.m. Sunday afternoon, August the 12th. So it's not tomorrow, but it's a week from tomorrow. The local chapter, unfortunately, our website is kind of backwards right now. So we're kind of improving our social media and other things. I hesitate to give you that. But if anybody has any questions about the National Space Society, you can contact me in 5BB at arrl.net. This is in 5B.
All right, since we seem to be running up, we'll move on to the discussion topic and give Tom some time to work on the transmitter. And for the discussion topic tonight, this is KC50ZT, by the way. I got a and so I thought that sounded interesting. It had some quite a bit of information on it, so let me reset. As you know, Titan is Saturn's largest moon, and there's a picture of Titan seen by the Cassini spacecraft. And this world is liquid methane and ethane rivers, lakes, and seas might support some kind of life. And this article said that scientists now think they know the best places to look. Titan is a geological wonderland for planetary scientists. It has rivers, lakes, and seas of actual liquid, but not water. It's made up of hydrocarbons, methane, and ethane. And it has mountain ranges, volcanoes, also known as cryovolcanoes, CRYO volcanoes. And it also has vast hydrocarbon dunes. So there's also evidence for a subsurface ocean of water, similar to those believed to lie beneath Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's other moon Enceladus. that article, perhaps surprisingly, there was a research team led by Catherine Nash, a planetary scientist specializing in impact cratering at the University of Western Ontario. And she suggested that the best locations to look for life on Titan would not be the lakes or seas, as always thought. Instead, the new work shows a better place to look would be within the impact craters and the cryovolcanoes on Titan. Scientists reason that these areas are where water ice in Titan's crust could temporarily melt into a liquid. Water is still the only solvent known to be able to support life as we know it. And various studies have suggested that liquid methane and ethane could support life, but Saturn's moon Titan, that's some 9 astronomical units farther from the sun than the Earth. It's very cold. The surface temperature is around negative 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Methane and ethane do remain liquid at Titan's surface temperature, but it's too there for biochemical processes, at least as far as we know. Although, of course, naturally, that's also a matter of debate. But studies show Titan's surface is also covered with something called tholins, Tholins. These are large, complex organic molecules produced when gases are subjected to cosmic radiation. And when mixed with liquid water, these tholins can produce amino acids, which are essentially life's building blocks. And according to researcher Morgan Cable at the NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, says when we mix tholins with liquid water, we make amino acids really fast. So any place where there is liquid water on Titan's or near its surface could be generating the precursors to life, known as biomolecules. That would be important to life as we know it, and that's really exciting. Now, the temperatures on Titan's surface are too cold for liquid water, so where could it be found? The answer is Titan's craters and these cryovolcanoes. The processes involved with both of these geologic features can melt water ice into liquid, even if only temporarily. But that might be enough for more complex organic molecules like amino acids to form. Now, between these two, the craters and the cryovolcanoes, it would seem the craters would be the most ideal location for this to occur. As Nish explained, craters really emerged as the clear winner for 3 main reasons. One is that we're pretty sure there are craters on Titan. Cratering is a very common geologic process, and we see circular features that are almost certainly craters on the surface. Also noted that craters would produce more liquid water melt than a cryovolcano, so any water would remain liquid for a longer period of time. She also added the last point is that impact craters actually produce water that's at a higher temperature than a cryovolcano. This warmer water would allow for faster chemical reaction rates, which would help in the creation of a prebiotic or even biotic molecules. Large known craters on Titan are Sinlap, that's about 70 miles in diameter. One called Selk, S-E-L-K, about 56 miles in diameter. And that's spelled M-E-N-R-V-A, about 244 miles in diameter. These would be the primary locations to look for these biomolecules. Anyway, that's her opinion and some others. Let me reset. Well, there's others studying it, and David Grinspoon at the Planetary Society Institute isn't convinced yet. He commented, "We don't know where to search, even with results like this. I wouldn't use it to guide our next mission to Titan. It's premature." So, what about the cryovolcanoes? They haven't actually been confirmed yet to exist on Titan. And if they do, they are more rare than craters. And even the craters are also relatively rare on Titan. But the most likely feature to be a cryovolcano is a mountain with a caldera on top called Vulpecula. Other than that, they seem to be few and far between. As Nietzsche said, volcanism is a harder thing to do, and there is little evidence of it on Titan. Anyway, there were some photos of that I sent over. But there is also, of course, a possible substitution of water on Titan. But if it exists, it's deep below the moon's surface, and right now inaccessible to any robotic probes in the near future. And there's a photograph showing what it might look like, that ocean down through the depths. For now, though, we can only imagine what it might be in that alien abyss. The methane and ethane licensees should still be explored, too. They are the only other known bodies of liquid on the surface of another moon or planet in the solar system. Methane-based life could theoretically exist in those environments, so it would obviously be a good idea to look, at least. But there will be, I'm sure, research going on in this subject, and we'll keep watching and see if we see what they discover in the next few years, and who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. And does anyone have any questions? All right, then. Let me check. Tom, are you back on the air?
How does that work? KE5I6.
Okay, that works fine. Would you like to give the Afterglow movie
All right, thank you. My goodness, I'm not even sure how the heck that happened, but the encode, decode, everything was off, like something nefarious happened. And I finally figured it out. So here we go. For tonight's After movie, this is for 2:30 this evening. Welcome to the Rock. Dr. Paul Bradley exclaimed, "The Orpheus Rock." Bradley was in charge of Project Hercules, a nuclear weapons platform designed to repel bad special effects from entering Earth's atmosphere, thus causing a motion picture extinction event. Never again, thought Bradley. He downed his martini. He was stirred, but not shaken about the whole thing. Little did anyone know the plot would be used again with other errant asteroids with better music, actors, and plot points in the future. Just not in this movie. Join us tonight at 10:30 for the Afterglow movie Meteor from 1979. I hope you'll join us. KE5IX.
And thank you for that, Tom. I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging. First, I want to take a round. Do we have anybody else wishing to check in? I just do recognize N5KRG Kevin on Echolink. But do we have anybody else wishing to check in by any method?
This is Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo.
EG5 TNF mobile in Forney, Texas.
That's 85 SE. Could you please give me your name, please?
Roger, my apologies. Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo handles Chuck. I'm in Richardson, Texas.
Welcome to the net, Chuck. And the next station, could you give me your call phonetically? I got the Cat G5, but can you give it to me phonetically?
Hi, Carolyn. Kilo Golf Tango, November Foxtrot. Johnny out here, mobile in Forney, Texas.
KG5TNF. All right, Johnny, we recognize you. Anybody else? Right, Tom, do you want to give the what can we see in the sky tonight? H50ZT.
I hope so, Miss Carolyn. Here we go. Let's see here. I'm so behind. This is from earthsky.org. Tonight, I wish I'd say this is my brilliance. It's not. So we'll just go ahead and start. So you can go to earthsky.org/tonight to get the information, or you can go to w5fc.org. Look for the south overhead late evening. See, we've recently seen Orion's return to the east before dawn, which means our northern summer is beginning to draw to close, but the summer triangle asterism still rules the skies. It pops out first thing at nightfall and climbs highest up for the night at late evening from northern latitudes. Vega, the summer triangle's brightest star, shines high overhead around 10:45 p.m. local time, 9:45 standard time. Altair resides in the southeast, lower left of Vega, and Deneb lies to Vega's east. The summer triangle is not a constellation. It's 3 stars in 3 different constellations. It has a wonderful photo view. There's a Susan Jensen out of Odessa, Washington. She gave a picture of this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and put it up if you have not seen it, or just go to the website. There is a link for it for the summer triangle called the Summer Triangle Asterism. The stars drift westward during the night. Deneb will swing upward to replace Vega as the overhead star some 2 hours later. Of course, the stars aren't really moving. It's the Earth's rotation that causes the stars to move westward during the night and the sun to go westward during the day. Because three stars making up the summer triangle are first magnitude stars, you can easily see the brilliant summer triangle on moonlit nights. However, you need a dark sky free of the moonlight to see the great swath of stars known as the Milky Way passing in between the summer triangle stars Vega and Altair. The star Deneb bobs in the middle of this river of stars that meander through the summer triangle, arcing across the sky from horizon to horizon. Although every star that you see with the unaided eye is actually a member of our Milky Way galaxy, the term Milky Way often refers to the cross-sectional view of the galactic disk, whereby innumerable far-off suns congregate into the cloudy trail of stars. Make friends with the summer triangle and its 3 brilliant stars, Vega, Deneb, and Altair, tonight. Note that the great boulevard of stars that streams right through the summer triangle on the inky dark night. That's actually an edgewise view of the galactic disk. By the way, you can see the summer triangle in the southern hemisphere too, although you would call it the winter triangle. It says, I wonder, south of the equator, people see an upside-down version of tonight's sky scene in contrast to our northern perspective. Late tonight, the southern hemisphere residents will see Altair at the top of the summer triangle and Vega and Deneb sparkling at the bottom. So the bottom line is the summer triangle asterism can be seen overhead at night, even late evening now. The summer triangle is not a constellation. It's 3 bright stars in 3 different constellations. These stars are Vega in the constellation Lyra the Harp, Deneb in the constellation Cygnus the Swan, and Altair in the constellation Aquila the Eagle. And from the U.S. Naval Observatory, some of these things have already happened, and some are about to be. They state the following: the moon wanes in the morning sky, reaching last quarter on August 4th at 2:18 Eastern Time. She spends the first week among the faint stars of the rising autumnal constellations and slips through her crescent phases as she passes through the winter stars in the gathering morning twilight. New moon occurs on the 11th at 5:58 Eastern Daylight Time, and by the end of the second week, you'll find her back in the evening sky where she'll be close to the dazzling Venus in the deepening evening twilight on the 14th. The new moon on the 11th will produce a partial eclipse of the sun for denizens of northern polar regions, as well as a significant part of the eastern Siberia and most of China. If you happen to find yourself in the town of Pevek in Russia's far-flung Chonsky district, yeah, you've been there, right? You will see about 57% of the sun's disk obscured by the moon, but the event will occur very close to the horizon. Here in Washington, we'll have to wait until June 10, 2021 to see our next solar eclipse, which will be a partial one with about 70% of the sun's disk covered as Old Sol rises that evening. By the way, we get a total solar eclipse in Dallas on June 10th. couple of weeks, we'll provide some of the best summertime stargazing for vacationers who get away from city lights. This is prime time for viewing the splendors of the summertime Milky Way during the overnight hours. Astronomical twilight now ends at around 10 p.m., and by 11 p.m., the soft glow of our home galaxy can be traced from the bright clouds in Sagittarius to the south up through the bright stars of the summer triangle near the zenith. It then continues over the northeast horizon, where you'll find the W-shaped constellation of Cassiopeia rising against the Milky Way's diffuse background glow. There is a perfect time to pick up an interest in amateur astronomy. It is during this time. You don't need sophisticated equipment to begin your exploration of the sky. A good pair of 7 by 50 binoculars will do. Pass over the Milky Way and you'll be amply rewarded. The misty glow will start to resolve into clouds of countless stars interspersed with tighter knots of soft glowing light. You can identify many of these glimmering patches with any number of smartphone apps, but put a piece of red gel over your phone's screen to preserve your night vision. If you have a small telescope, you can resolve fuzzy patches into clusters of stars and softly glowing gas. Maybe gas. My favorite instrument for scanning these regions is my 80mm f6 refractor with a wide field low power eyepiece. It shows me not only the resolved star clouds of the galaxy, but it also reveals the mysterious dark patches where no stars shine at all. These dark nebulae represent molecular clouds where the building blocks of our stars and planets are present. They will eventually become clusters of bright young stars that may be visible to our distant descendants. The Perseid meteor shower reaches its peak on the night of the 12th and 13th. This is the year's most reliable and consistent meteor display. And this year, there will be no interference from stray moonlight. The shower is radiant. The point in the sky at which the shooting stars seem to originate lies just below Cassiopeia and climbs higher as the night passes. The best time to view the shower is after midnight, and a single observer at a dark location can expect to see over 50 meters per hour. Perseids are typically quite bright and very swift, and I expect a good show this year. This comes from the experts, by the way. And the planets. Venus hangs tough in the western twilight sky. She now sets at the end of evening twilight, so you'll be limited into seeing her against a brighter sky. She'll get a visit from the waxing crescent moon on the evening of the 14th. Jupiter may be found in the southwest as the evening twilight deepens. You don't have too much time to catch a good view of him in telescopes, so try to get a scope on him as soon as he becomes visible. He's slowly drifting eastward toward the star Zobi Nubi in the constellation Libra. He'll pass just a half a degree north of the star by the middle of the month. Is in prime viewing position for most of the overnight hours. He crosses the meridian around 10 p.m., which is when he reaches his culmination above the southern horizon. That said, he never gets higher than 30 degrees of altitude for most of us in the mid-Atlantic. So pick a night with still air to get your best view of the planet and his magnificent rings. And then finally, Mars is now as close to the Earth as he's going to get this year. It's at over 57,590,000 kilometers, or about 35 million miles. This is as close as he's been since 2003, and we'll have to wait until 2035 to see him this close again. His parent disk is a bit over half the size of Jupiter, so it's possible to blend surface detail with modest telescope. It appears that the global dust storm that has obscured his surface is finally beginning to wane, so over the next few weeks, some details may become clearer. However, with Saturn, Mars is low in the southern sky, so you'll need very steady air to get a good look at him. And by the way, some of the pictures have been shared by folks over on the Facebook page, which is the DARC Skynet. You have to put both those words in, separated by each other, because there's lots of Skynet sites. But if you do so, you'll be able to see some of the pictures that people have set up. This is KE5ICX, finally on the air. Back to you, Miss Carolyn. KC50ZT from KE5ICX.
Thank you for that, Tom. And before we move on, do we have anybody to check in? I recognize K5WTH William on Echo Link. William. All right, we're going to move on to tonight's constellation. Now, this is just under Cygnus, the swan, that we looked at, I think it was last week. But this is Vulpecula. This means a little fox in Latin. It's relatively faint, with no stars brighter than fourth magnitude, and it can be found in the middle of the summer triangle. It was introduced by Johann in the late 17th century. He originally named it Vulpecula cum anseri. I guess it's Latin, which means a little fox with a goose. But the constellation was depicted as a fox holding a goose in its jaws. The stars later separated to form two constellations, Answer and Vulpecula, and then merged back together into the present-day Vulpecula. The goose was left out of the constellation's name, though. But instead, the brightest star, Alpha, carries the name Answer. This little Vulpecula is the 55th constellation in size. We'll look at first the star Alpha, or Answer, the goose. It's a red giant star, class M, at magnitude 4.4, and it is the brightest star in this constellation. It formed a wide optical binary with a nearby star, 8 Vulpecula, an orange giant, magnitude 5.8. That should be a good view in the telescope. The next star is it's interesting. It's HD 189733, or also known as V452 Vulpecula. Crazy name, but it's a binary star, only about 0.3 of a degree east of M27, the Dumbbell Nebula that we'll get to in a minute. It's made up of an orange dwarf, magnitude 6, and a red dwarf, magnitude 10. And the system can easily be found with binoculars. What's its claim to fame, you might say, in October of 2005, an extrasolar planet was confirmed to be orbiting the primary star. And it is a hot Jupiter-class planet with a close orbit to the orange dwarf. And it was the first extrasolar planet discovered with carbon dioxide in its atmosphere. And everybody was around 1967. You'll remember this, but this PSR, and then B, 1919 plus 21, that's simply its coordinates. But it was the first pulsar ever discovered. The name PSR, etc., comes from the word pulsar, and of course it's the coordinates at which it's located. And I remember this making the news back then. British astrophysicist Jocelyn Bell Burnell and her thesis supervisor Anthony Hewish discovered the pulsar in 1967, and Hewish shared the Nobel Prize in Physics for this discovery. Before they figured out what the nature of the signal was, they considered the possibility that they had picked up a signal from an extraterrestrial civilization. However, astrophysicist Thomas Gold and astronomer Fred Hoyle eventually identified these signals as rapidly rotating neutron stars with very strong magnetic fields. And this little constellation has the honor of having the first pulsar in it. Enough, in 1982, just a few degrees away from that pulsar, they found PSR B 1937 plus 21, and it was the first millisecond pulsar ever discovered. Its rotational period is nearly 642 rotations per second. And that just, it's hard to imagine that, but anyway, it's there in that nice little constellation. And moving on to deep sky objects. We have a beautiful one, the Dumbbell Nebula, M27, one of the best known planetary nebula, and was the first planetary nebula discovered. Remember, these are formed when a dying star throws off its gas. And this one is named Dumbbell because it has a double-lobed structure resembling a barbell. And it's sometimes called the Apple Core Nebula. But the central star is a white dwarf, larger than any other known white dwarf. And there's a nice open star cluster, NGC 6885. Its magnitude 5.7 lies near the dumbbell, and it can actually be seen without binoculars. And we have a nice galaxy, NGC 7052, an elliptical galaxy, magnitude 13. It's a known radio source. It has a dust disk that's 3,700 light years in diameter, as you can tell by the photo. It's believed to have formed in a galaxy collision a long time ago. In the next several billion years, the disk will be swallowed by the galaxy's black hole, which is 100 times more massive than the disk itself. And the next object is actually two, NGC 6820 and 6823. 6820 is an emission nebula, and it surrounds an open cluster, 6823. And this is also located near M27. The cluster is about 50 light years across and contains many young blue stars. And the outer parts of the cluster that appear next to the pillars of the nebula are home to even younger stars. Then we have an open star cluster, which has quite a history. It's Brocchi's cluster, or Alciphei's cluster, but it's a group of stars located near the border with Sagitta. The cluster is sometimes known after Alciphei's cluster, who discovered it, but the Italian astronomer Giovanni Hodierna independently discovered it in the 17th century. And then Brocchi, that's B-R-O-C-C-H-I, who was an amateur astronomer and chart maker, created a map of the cluster for use in its calibrating photometers. Therefore, it got his name. You may have heard of it by another name. The brighter stars in this cluster form a well-known asterism known as the coat hanger. That's the 10 brightest stars in the cluster. And it appears as a patch of light to the unaided eye, and it can easily be seen in binoculars. So this may be a small, faint constellation, but it's got some famous objects and some nice objects to look up, and so take a tour through it. All right, and have anybody else wishing to check in before we move on? This is AC50ZT, and move on to recent discoveries. Brenda, WB50ZL, would you like to take that? AC50ZT.
Carolyn, this is WB50ZL. The first article is entitled Parker Solar Probe and the Birth of a Solar Wind. This summer, humanity embarks on its first mission to touch the sun. A spacecraft will be launched into the sun's outer atmosphere. Facing several million degree Fahrenheit temperatures, NASA's Parker Solar Probe, named after Eugene Parker, the University of Chicago physicist who first predicted the solar wind's existence, will directly sample solar particles and magnetic fields in an attempt to resolve some of the most important questions facing the field of solar science today. Among these questions, what is the origin of the solar wind and how is it accelerated to speeds of up to 1.8 million miles per hour? The solar wind fills our entire solar system. With gusts of solar wind arrive at Earth, they can set off dazzling aurora, but also expose astronauts to radiation, interfere with satellite electronics, and disrupt communication signals like GPS and radio waves. The more we understand the fundamental processes that drive the solar wind, the more we can mitigate some of these effects. In 1958, Parker developed a theory showing how the sun's hot corona, by then known to be millions of degrees Fahrenheit, is so hot that it overcomes the sun's gravity. According to the theory, the material on the corona expands continuously outwards in all directions, forming a solar wind. A year later, the Soviet spacecraft Luna 1 detected solar wind particles in space, and 3 years after that, the observations were confirmed by NASA's Mariner 2 spacecraft. All those years ago, Mariner 2 detected two distinct streams of solar wind, a slow stream traveling at approximately 215 miles per second, and a fast stream zipping through space at twice that speed. Then in 1973, origins of the fast solar wind were identified. X-ray images of the corona taken from Skylab, the U.S.'s first manned space station, revealed that the fast wind spews from coronal holes, which are dark, comparatively cool regions of the sun. The slow solar wind is, in many respects, a larger mystery, said Jim Klemchuk, solar physicist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. It offers great promise for revealing fundamental new understanding. The origins and acceleration mechanisms of the slow solar wind remain mysterious. It is a matter of a decades-long fierce debate between scientists. We're not without clues. NASA's Ulysses mission, launched in 1990 to fly around the sun's poles, observed that during periods of minimum solar activity, the slow solar wind is confined to the sun's equator, right where Parker's solar probe will fly. As the sun cycle progresses toward its maximum, the structure of the solar wind changes from two distinct regimes, fast at the poles and slow at the equator, to mixed inhomogeneous flow. The debate about the origins of the slow solar wind hinges on a distinction between what's known as the closed and open corona. The closed corona refers to regions of the sun where its magnetic field lines are closed, that is connected to the solar surface at both ends. Bright helmet streamers, large loops that form over magnetically active regions shaped like a knight's pointy helmet, are one such example. The plasma or ionized gas traveling along the closed loops of a helmet streamer is for the most part confined to areas near the sun. This article just goes on and on and on. I think I will stop there and move on to the other article. You can go to ScienceDaily.com and read the whole thing if you want to. Second article is VLA detects possible extrasolar planetary mass magnetic powerhouse. Astronomers using the National Science Foundation's Carl G. Jansky Very Large Array, VLA, have made the first radio telescope detection of a planetary mass object beyond our solar system. The object, about a dozen times more massive than Jupiter, is a surprisingly strong magnetic powerhouse and a rogue traveling through space unaccompanied by any parent star. The boundary between a planet and a brown dwarf or failed star is giving us some surprises that can potentially help us understand magnetic processes on both stars and planets, said Melody Cowell, who led this study while a graduate student at Caltech and is now a Hubble postdoctoral fellow at Arizona State University. Brown dwarfs are objects too massive to consider planets, yet not massive enough to sustain nuclear fusion of hydrogen in their cores, the process that powers stars. Theorists suggested in the 1960s that such objects would exist, but the first one was not discovered until 1995. They originally were thought to not emit radio waves, but in 2001, a VLA discovery of radio flaring in one revealed strong magnetic activity. Subsequent observations show that some brown dwarfs have strong auroras, similar to those seen in our own solar system's giant planets. The auroras seen on Earth are caused by our planet's magnetic field interacting with a solar wind. However, solitary brown dwarfs do not have a solar wind from a nearby star to interact with. How the auroras are caused in brown dwarfs is unclear, but scientists think one possibility is an orbiting planet or moon interacting with the brown dwarf magnetic field, such as what happens between Jupiter and its moon Io. The strange object in the latest study called SIMP then there's a string of numbers, has a magnetic field more than 200 times stronger than Jupiter's. The object was originally detected in 2016 as one of 5 brown dwarfs, and scientists studied with the VLO to gain new knowledge about magnetic fields and the mechanisms by which some of the coolest such objects produce strong radio emission. Brown dwarf masses are notoriously difficult to measure, and at the time, the object was thought to be an old and much more massive brown dwarf. I think I'll cut this one as well. It's pretty long. It's, like I said, ScienceDaily.com, and I'm going to leave it at that. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you for that, Brenda. Does anyone have any questions? Move on to space exploration and history. And Kelly, K5KTX, it's yours, K5OZT.
Oh, this is K5KTX, starting with a story about a new device that's now on the International Space Station. The International Space Station is officially home to the coolest experiment in space. NASA's Cold Atom Laboratory, or CAL, was installed in the station's U.S. lab in late May and is now producing clouds of ultra-cold atoms known as Bose-Einstein condensates. These BECs reach temperatures just above absolute zero, the point at which atoms should theoretically stop moving entirely. This is the first time BECs have ever been produced in orbit. CAL is a multi-user facility dedicated to the study of fundamental laws of nature using ultra-cold quantum gases in microgravity. Cold atoms are long-lived, precisely controlled quantum particles that provide an ideal platform for the study of quantum phenomena and potential applications of quantum technologies. This NASA facility is the first of its kind in space. It is designed to advance scientists' ability to make precision measurements of gravity, probing long-standing problems in quantum physics, the study of the universe at the very smallest scales, and exploring the wave-like nature of matter. Scientists confirmed last week that the facility has produced BECs from atoms of rubidium with temperatures as low as 100 nanokelvin, or 1/10 millionth of 1 Kelvin above absolute zero. Absolute zero, or 0 Kelvin, is equal to minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit. That's colder than the average temperature of space, which is about 3 Kelvin, or minus 454 degrees Fahrenheit. But the CAL scientists have their sights set even lower and expect to reach temperatures colder than what any BEC experiments have achieved on Earth. At the ultra-cold temperatures, the atoms in a BEC begin to behave unlike anything else on Earth. In fact, BECs are characterized as a fifth state of matter from gases, liquids, solids, and plasma. In a BEC, atoms act more like waves than particles. The wave nature of atoms is typically only observable at microscopic scales, but BECs make this phenomenon macroscopic and thus much easier to study. The ultra-cold atoms all assume their lowest energy state and take on the same wave identity, becoming indistinguishable from one another. Together, the atom clouds are like a single superatom instead of individual atoms. Hotwell is Chief Engineer of JPL's Astronomy and Physics Directorate and has overseen the challenging project since February 2017. He said, CAL is an extremely complicated instrument. Typically, BEC experiments involve enough equipment to fill a room and require near constant monitoring by scientists, whereas CAL is about the size of a small refrigerator and can be operated remotely from Earth. It was a struggle and required significant effort to overcome all the hurdles necessary to produce the sophisticated facility that's operating on the space station today. The first laboratory BEs were produced in 1995, but the phenomenon was first predicted 71 years earlier by physicists Satyendra Nath Bose and Albert Einstein. Eric Cornell, Carl Weinman, and Wolfgang Ketterle shared the 2001 Nobel Prize in Physics for being the first to create and characterize BECs in the lab. 5 science groups, including groups led by Cornell and Ketterle, will conduct experiments with CAL during its first year. Hundreds of BEC experiments have been operated on Earth since the mid-1990s, and a few BEC experiments have even made brief trips to space aboard sound rockets. But CAL is the first facility of its kind on the space station where scientists conduct daily studies of BECs over long periods. BECs are created in atom traps or frictionless containers made out of magnetic fields or focused lasers. On Earth, when these traps are shut off, gravity pulls on the ultra-cold atom, and they can only be studied for fractions of a second. The persistent microgravity of the space station allows scientists to observe individual BECs for 5 to 10 seconds at a time, with the ability to repeat these measurements for up to 6 hours per day. As the atom cloud decompresses inside the atom trap, its temperature naturally drops, and the longer the cloud stays in the trap, the colder it gets. This natural phenomenon that a drop in pressure also means a drop in temperature is also the reason that a can of spray paint gets cold when the paint is sprayed out. The can's internal pressure is dropping. In microgravity, the BECs can decompress to colder temperatures than any earthbound instrument. Day-to-day operations of CAL require no intervention from astronauts aboard station. In addition to BECs made from rubidium atoms, the CAL team is working toward making BECs using 2 different isotopes of potassium atoms. CAL is currently in a commissioning phase in which the operations team conducts a long series of tests to fully understand how the CAL facility operates in microgravity. The diverse range of experiments they plan to perform means there are many techniques for manipulating and cooling the atoms that they need to adapt for microgravity before they turn the instrument over to the principal investigators to begin science operations. The science phase is expected to begin in early September and will last 3 years. The Cold Atom Laboratory launched to the space station on May 21st aboard a Northrop Grumman, or formerly orbital ATK Cygnus spacecraft from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. My next story, I hope all of you got to watch and listen in on Friday morning as they made this announcement about the new astronaut crew. But NASA introduced to the world the first U.S. astronauts who will fly on American-made commercial spacecraft to and from the International Space Station, an endeavor that will return astronaut launches to U.S. soil for the first time since the Space Shuttle's retirement in 2011. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine said, "Today, our country's dreams of greater achievements in space are within our grasp. This accomplished group of American astronauts flying on new spacecraft developed by our commercial partners Boeing and SpaceX will launch a new era of human spaceflight. Today's announcement advances our great American vision and strengthens the nation's leadership in space." The agency assigned 9 astronauts to crew the first test flight and mission of both Boeing's CST-100 Starliner and SpaceX's Crew Dragon. NASA has worked closely with the company throughout the design, development, and testing to ensure the systems meet NASA's safety and performance requirements. Here is a rundown of the new crews, starting first with the Starliner test flight astronaut Eric Bowe, who was born in Miami and grew up in Atlanta. He came to NASA from the Air Force, where he was a fighter pilot and test pilot, and rose to the rank of colonel. He was selected as an astronaut in 2000 and piloted the Space Shuttle Endeavour for the STS-126 mission and Discovery on its final flight, STS-133. Chris Ferguson is a native of Philadelphia. He is a retired Navy captain who piloted Space Shuttle Atlantis for STS-115 and commanded Space Shuttle Endeavour on STS-126 and Atlantis for the final flight of the Space Shuttle program, STS-135. He retired from NASA in 2011 and has been an integral part of Boeing's CST-100 Starliner program. Nicole Mann is a California native and a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. She is an FA-18 test pilot with more than 2,500 flight hours and more than 25 aircraft. Mann was selected as an astronaut in 2013, and this will be her first trip to space. The Boeing Starliner will launch aboard a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. I do not have any dates for when those first test flights will happen. Moving on to the Crew Dragon test flight astronauts. The first one is Robert Bankin, who is from St. Anne, Missouri. He has a doctorate in engineering and is a flight test engineer and colonel in the Air Force. He joined the Astronaut Corps in 2000 and flew aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour twice for the STS-123 and 130 missions, in which he performed 6 spacewalks totaling more than 37 hours. And Douglas Hurley, who calls Appalachian, New York, his hometown. He was a test pilot and colonel in the Marine Corps before coming to NASA in 2000 to become an astronaut. He piloted Space Shuttle Endeavour for STS-127 and Atlantis for STS-135, the final Space Shuttle mission. Dragon will launch aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. After each company successfully completes its crewed test flight, NASA will begin the final process of certifying the spacecraft and systems for regular crew missions to the space station. The agency has contracted 6 missions with as many as 4 astronauts per mission for each company. And now for the second crew, the Starliner first mission astronauts will be Josh Casada, who grew up in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. He's a Navy commander and test pilot with more than 3,500 flight hours and more than 40 aircraft. He was selected as an astronaut in 2013, and this will be his first space flight. And Sunita or Sunny Williams was born in Euclid, Ohio, but considers Needham, Massachusetts her hometown. Williams came to NASA from the Navy, where she was a test pilot and rose to the rank of captain before retiring. Since her selection as an astronaut in 1998, she has spent 322 days aboard the International Space Station for Expeditions 14, 15, and Expeditions 32, 33, commanded the space station, and performed 7 spacewalks. The skin crew for the Crew Dragon is Victor Glover, who is from Pomona, California, Navy commander, aviator, and test pilot with almost 3,000 hours, flying more than 40 different. He made 400 carrier landings and flew 24 combat missions. He was selected as part of the 2013 astronaut candidate class. This will be his first space flight. And finally, Michael Hopkins, who was born in Lebanon, Missouri, and grew up on a farm near Richland, Missouri. He is a colonel in the Air Force, where he was a flight test engineer before being selected as NASA astronaut in 2009. He has spent 166 days on the International Space Station for Expeditions 37, 38, and conducted 2 spacewalks. Crew members will be assigned by NASA international partners at a later date. The new spaceflight capability provided by Boeing and SpaceX will allow NASA to maintain a crew of 7 astronauts on the space station, thereby maximizing scientific research that leads to breakthroughs and also aid in understanding and mitigating the challenges of long-duration space flight. So a very exciting announcement, and I will be so happy that we will be able to start launching our astronauts back on U.S. soil again. Very quickly in space history, I just had a couple of items starting with July 29th, way back in 1878. A total eclipse of the sun was observed from Fort Worth by a party directed by Leonard Waldo, then at Harvard College Observatory. Many observers were recruited both locally and from out-of-state academic institutions. The program included drawings and photography of the solar corona, measurements of polarization, and spectroscopic observations of the changing light from the solar chromosphere. From the latter, W.H. Pulsifer of Washington University in St. Louis deduced a height of the chromosphere of at least 524 miles. David Todd of the Naval Observatory observed from Dallas and produced sketches of the solar corona. Also on July the 29th, back in 1958, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act, which established the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. This one's just for Tom, but I did want to mention that just in the last week or so, they have released, I think it's thousands of hours worth of audio from the Apollo 11 mission. It's 19,000 hours of audio recordings that they just released. You can go to nasa.gov/new Apollo audio, and you can get links to all of that, and it's very, very interesting. I listened to a little bit of it in the last couple of weeks. It's pretty fun to listen to. And that's all I've got. This is K5 KTX. Back to you.
Thank you for that, Kelly. And Tom, I know we won't have time for the satellites, so we'll just skip that. Do one last round of check-ins. Anybody wishing to check in? This is final call.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
And that welcomes KG5EIU David. And with that being final call, we will close the net. And tonight we had, let me see here, we had 27 hams participating on the air. Thanks to everybody that checked in this evening, and we hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. Remember, on this net, the sky is never the limit.
Thanks, guys and girls, for a great net, K5JDW.
This and all the DARC nets, if you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow the topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org. So until next Saturday night, this is KT5OZT, Carolyn, and I'll be closing the net at 10:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur news. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evenings discovering the universe. KC5OZT.
This is N5H5P, a very late check-in.
Okay, make that 28 check-ins tonight. KC5OZT.
I may have interrupted you for a second there. I thought you were done. And I want to tell everybody thanks for a great net, K5JDW.
Welcome, and thanks for the compliment. KC5OZT, standing by.
Meteor from 1979 in 5 minutes. Go powder your nose, KE5I6. KE5ICX. I'll be net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin? What is this net? Well, it has everything to do with bad or good movies, science fiction in particular. So tonight, we have selected a fine motion picture called Meteor from 1979. This film is fantastic in so many ways, or not. At any rate, think about that for a moment. If you saw the film, that's fantastic. If you did not, that's okay too. We're over on Facebook. Go ahead and look for Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow Movie, and sign up. And then you'll get what the movies are that we are watching going forward 3 weeks in advance, so that you don't have to worry about immediately watching the film on Saturday evening. That will help. In any case, let's go ahead and get started. This is KE5ICX. I'll be net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. I'm going to give you a plot as to this fine motion picture, and then you think about and collect your thoughts as to how this film plays out. So let me go ahead and give you the plot. After the fictional asteroid Orpheus is hit by a comet, a 5-mile-wide chunk of Orpheus is sent on a collision course towards Earth, which will cause an extinction-level event. While the United States government engages in political maneuvering, smaller asteroid fragments precede the main body, wreaking havoc on the planet. The United States has a secret orbiting nuclear missile platform satellite named Hercules, which is designed by Dr. Paul Bradley, to the rock, Sean Connery, and was intended to defend Earth against the massive space rock, but instead was demoted to become an orbiting super weapon now aimed at Russia. However, its 14 nuclear missiles are not enough to stop the meteor. The United States discovers that the Soviet Union also has a weapon satellite. The president, played by Henry Fonda, should have been Henry Ford, goes on national television and reveals the existence of Hercules, explaining it was created to meet the threat that Orpheus represents. He also offers the Soviets a chance to save face by announcing that they, too, had the same program and their own satellite weapon. Bradley requests a Soviet scientist named Dr. Alexei Dubkov, played by Brian Keith, that one, to help him plan a counter effort against Orpheus. Bradley and Harry Sherwood, played by Carl Bolden, check your American Express card, of NASA, meet at the control center for Hercules, located beneath the 195 Broadway in Lower Manhattan, that's near Studio 54. Major General Alden, played by Mark Landau from Space 1999, is the commander of the facility. Dubkov and his interpreter, Tatyana Doskaya, played by Natalie Wood, arrive, and Bradley gets to work on breaking the ice between them. Since Dubkov cannot admit the existence of the Soviet device. He agrees to Bradley's proposal that they work on theoretical application of how theoretical Soviet space platform weapons would be coordinated with the American ones. This is KE5ICX. Meanwhile, more meteor fragments strike Earth, and the Soviets finally admit that they're willing to join the effort. It appears that the satellite has a lot more in common with Hercules, with 16 nuclear missiles to be used against the large space rock, but is now an orbiting super weapon aimed at the United States. The satellite is christened Peter the Great, and both satellites are turned towards the asteroid. Unfortunately, smaller fragments continue to strike the planet, causing the great damage, including a deadly avalanche in the Swiss Alps and a tsunami which devastates Hong Kong. Stock footage. On Sunday morning, Peter the Great's missiles are launched first because of its relative position to the asteroid. Hercules, there's extra apostrophe S, missiles are fired 40 minutes later. Just after Hercules missiles are launched, New York City is struck by a large fragment, destroying most of the city. Several workers inside the control center are killed when this facility is destroyed. You try and do these prepositional phrases. And the survivors slowly work their way out of the control center by going through the New York subway system. Well, there's more, but I'm just going to go to the chase. Eventually, the missiles reach the meteor. The first wave of missiles strikes the rock, causing a small explosion. The second wave follows with a larger blast. The third wave creates an enormous explosion. The dust clears. The asteroid appears obliterated. In New York City, the radios broadcast the good news. Orpheus is no longer a danger to Earth. Just then, the subway station occupants are rescued. Later at the airport, Dubov, Tatiana, Bradley, and others exchange goodbyes before Dubkov and Tatiana depart on a plane. It's a 737. Don't tell anybody. It's an American plane for the Soviet Union. Oh, dear God. Who decided on this movie? This is KE5ICX. I'll be net control, such as it is, for tonight's fantastic afterglow movie, Meteor, from 1979. I had to think about it. I'll take low power short time check-ins. Please come now. None at all? Okay, I'll take general check-ins. Please come now. And I will get Echolink. Maybe. Go ahead. General check-ins. Please come now.
Delta 5, India, Zulu, Foxtrot.
Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville, and I saw the movie.
5 Sierra Echo, Chuck in Richardson. I've seen the movie several times.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. Yes, we saw the movie.
Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I have unfortunately seen the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto. Yes, I have seen this movie.
Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. Yes, I've seen the movie.
All right, let me hold up there. I've got KD5IZF, Dave in Mesquite. Did you see the movie? No? I'm just going to listen and see what's going on. Back to you. All right, cool deal. You're going to have to listen carefully, Dave, because, you know, as the mayor of Mesquite, there are many things you have to keep track of. But I got you down. You didn't see the movie, but thanks for checking in. KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn Louisville. I got you down as, yes, you saw the movie. Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo. Please give me your name and location. Let me know if you saw the movie. You probably did tell me that, but I didn't write it down fast enough. Go ahead.
Roger, Chuck Richardson. I've seen the movie so many times it's not even funny.
Excellent. 85 SE, Chuck and Richardson. You are officially the guy who knows everything about this movie, so be ready. I got a laser pointer. I'm going to point it at you, and you're going to have to respond. N5HYP, Tom and Irving. Yes, you saw the movie along with the et al., etc., the other folks. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. He admits he saw the movie. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto. She saw the movie. W5EBB, David in Dallas. Yes, he saw the movie. Any additional people who would like to check in for tonight's net? You don't have to necessarily have seen the movie, but if you did, it's okay. We have a 7-step program. Tonight's movie is Meteor from 1979 with Mr. Rock himself, Sean Connery. Additional check-ins, please come now with your call sign, name, location. Let me know if you saw the movie. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford on Echolink, and I did see the film.
Let me go ahead and get KG5BZWJ over in Weatherford. I'll take Echolink check-ins. I got J already. Additional Echolink check-ins for tonight's movie, Meteor from 1979. Please come now. I'll give you extra time.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra. Billy and Sherman did not get a chance to see the film. We will be talking about meteors, meteorites, and other stuff. So you may be asked to give your comments. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight. Skynet. No, it's not Skynet. We're talking about Africa Movie Net. It's like Skynet, only better. So let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins who would like to talk about tonight's movie Meteor from 1979. Please come now.
KG5, TNF, Johnny in Garland. I have not seen the movie, but I do know Sean Connery.
I got WG5TNF, Johnny. He did not see the movie, but he does know Sean Connery. All right, Johnny, listen close, because at the bottom of the list, we're going to ask your opinion on everybody else's comments that have everything to do with Sean Connery. So let's go ahead and go to the top of the list. Let's see. Dave, KD5IZF, the mayor of Mesquite. I'll go ahead and ask him, do you have any comments on tonight's movie, Meteor?
Well, Tom, I think still waiting to make the decision, so you're going to have to keep filling me in with all this information. And back to you.
Hey, Dave, well, you were top of the list. I'd ask you. So if you have any comments, you know what to do. Bring them in. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn and Luso, you saw this fine film. Your comments? Probably plot. I should probably more define. The plot. Was there a plot, or should this movie have been dropped into a plot? KC5OZT from KE5ICX.
As far as plot, it's more or less a standard. That scenario has been talked about for years, for ages, about what would happen. And I think they just took that idea and just wrote a nice little, I don't want to say a simple story, but it's predictable plot. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Overall, individual details, of course, weren't predictable, but overall, it was it's sort of a nice, standard, predictable, almost like a TV show, really. But that was my impression. I've seen this over the years, but that's all I can think of right now. KC5OZT.
Miss Carolyn, I don't disagree. It looks like a TV plot. Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo, Chuck, your comments on the plot.
Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo. My comments are Uncle Bill meets Bond, James Bond, on the streets of San Francisco. Where was Mr. French? Just another movie in a long series of disaster movies. Airport, Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure. It goes on and on. Back to you.
Chuck, you hit all of the major vibes having to do with this fine film, and the fact that Brian Keith was in everything and nothing. It's amazing, isn't it? Okay, all right. Yeah. And we had to do with every disaster film ever made, which this movie actually fell into quite favorably or unfavorably. All right, we're coming back to you later because you're going to have to, sum this all up with characterizations and all that. So write that down. Think about the characters. Go and Google it all because we need your comments on how these characters all fit in with this fine story. N5HYP, Tom and Irving, you and company et al. Saw this film. Tom, your comments on the fine plot.
Good evening, Tom and the net. This is N5HYP. Yeah, we saw the movie. Yes, I agree. It is. Yeah, in the 70s, especially back then, studios, they would, the plot might be a little weak, but heck, we'll sell it with about 15 major stars. We'll spend a lot of money on salaries and on the contracts for these major stars to play in this movie. Oh, we might get around to plot later. Just the star power alone will bring him in. That's kind of, I think, the excuse for a marginal plot. I mean, there wasn't anything different, like has been said already, as compared to most any other of the disaster movies. So we'll leave it from there. I can't wait to talk about characters and effects. So we'll do that later. N5HYP, back to net.
Good, Tom. The night of 15 stars. Well, there was the night of 100 stars, but that was in 1980, which didn't come for another year or two. We can talk about that, too. All right, very good. We are waiting, and you are on notice for special effects and characterizations. NT5T and Tony in Dallas. Super Brain, tell us about what you thought of this fine motion picture.
You're just egging me on. Really a C- movie. I mean, so 70s, really so made for TV. The Poseidon Adventure is actually, I liked it. I've seen it several times. I think it's a good movie. I saw this many years ago on TV, and I could remember the commercials better than I could the movie. Remember, Jobs for the 80s start at MATC, the Milwaukee Area Technical College. This was no Poseidon Adventure. The plot was predictable and draggy and wrong-headed. They spent a lot of time on Sean Connery seducing the Russian astrophysicist, who cares, and very little time on the fact that it would have been very difficult for the Soviet Union and the U.S. to actually use their massive space superweapons and trust each other. The intricate negotiations and tension and suspense that would have gone into that were largely glossed over. There was a little nod to it, but, speaking hypothetically, if we had such a weapon, but really, they missed that. And it was the Cold War. They really had an opportunity there that they flubbed. Top of that, the timing was just deliberately backwards. It would have been important to hit the asteroid as soon as possible when a fraction of a meter per second would have done the job. Because of the rock 5 miles ride, those nuclear weapons weren't going to do squat to it. They might have given it the tiniest nudge. But no, instead they deliberately wait until Pearl Harbor Day to launch their rockets. I thought the plot was annoying and contrived and poorly thought through. It didn't draw me in, and it skipped what could have been the good parts with all the international intrigue. NT5TM.
All right, thanks, Tony. I knew you would get to the center of this uncensored movie. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto, what say ye?
Well, this is WB5OZL. What a novel idea. And meteors coming to hit the Earth. How many times has this been done? I'm going to look it up. And I'm going to find out. The big problem I have with the plot is this thing got here in 6 days, and I don't understand how that happened. I did some research. The fastest spacecraft to go to the asteroid belt was Voyager 2, which made it in 81 days. So I don't know how this rock got here in 6 days. It just didn't make any sense to me. But I think that was part of the contrivance of, we have to work together, blah, blah, blah. Lots of stock footage of disasters, no credit for that. This thing took $16 million to make and only took in $8 million. This is an embarrassment, and if I were the people in it, I would take my name off of it. It was just, I felt sorry for them. It was just painful. But, oh well, it's a living. Okay, back to net, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX, net control. For tonight's movie, we're discussing Meteor from 1979. I'll take additional check-ins in a minute. W5EBB, David in Dallas, you admit to seeing the movie. Tell us more about the plot.
Well, amazingly, I had not seen this movie before, and it was, I guess, touted to be a blockbuster, but I did see it today. And I'll just say, you cannot have a true disaster movie unless it has been produced by Irwin Allen and or co-stars Charlton Heston or Gene Hackman. Otherwise, you're just, you're probably not going to have the best disaster movie as the result. But this is one in a long string of, subsequent apocalyptic natural disaster movies that are thwarted by technology. And you don't see movies with the converse theme too often. But this movie had just a lot of filler that fell flat, involving the character interactions. They were forced and awkward, especially the banter between Dr. Bradley and Tatiana. I mean, it really didn't go anywhere. It wasn't resolved. It was just filler, and it didn't really add anything to the movie. But there was a lot of that. And the day before the meteor is going to hit, the guys are sitting around playing chess and just goofing off. It's like, well, you'd think they'd be a little more attentive. So that didn't seem too appropriate. But 1979, okay, this is Cold War era. It's just before the Reagan era. Russia's the evil empire. But yet, this is somewhat predictive about the cooperation and the glasnost and the uneasy cooperation that resulted just a few years afterwards, with the falling of the Berlin Wall and the cozy relationship between Reagan and Gorbachev that followed. I mean, it's all in the family when you add Brian Keith to the mix. W5EBB.
Good. Thank you, David. And you make some very good comments about the time and place in this motion picture, and the fact that they were trying to figure out ways of making it all work. So let's see here. KG5BZWJ over on Echolink near Weatherford. Your comments.
This is KG5BZW. Well, what to say here? Plot. But first, I gotta acknowledge EBB. Well, so in 1975, there's the Apollo Soyuz mission. I know this, not this net, but the Skynet's. I'm pretty sure they. Well, have they? I don't know. I suppose it's in the spirit of that. But otherwise, well, what to say? The plot really is predictable and pretty boring. Except for the one thing, I have to admit, I was not expecting the plot point just before, where they almost did something really kind of cool with the distraction of, oh, maybe we can momentarily. They at least posed the question of, well, if it's kind of we'll call it the trolley problem, where, okay, what exactly do you do? Do you send a nuke to save New York, and risk the big problem not being totally solved, or that kind of thing. I'm not explaining myself well, but I thought that was kind of cool. But otherwise, yeah, you had the picture of the avalanche. It's like, all right, there's gonna be not the avalanche, the Swiss Alps, and all right, there's gonna be avalanche coming in. It follows through just exactly as you expect. Let me reset. Okay, hopefully I didn't time out anything. And I know we've got other points to get through. Yeah, I guess I've said my thing about the plot. This is KG5BZW.
Thank you, Jay. Next up, KFI-PDS, Miss Billy in Sherman. Heard you on the radio this week, yesterday in fact. Your comments on this fine film called Meteor from 1979. Go ahead, Billy. Plot.
Well, good evening, Tom, and I'm so glad you heard me. That was a lot of fun to do. So yeah, I made the big time, made it onto NPR. Well, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see this movie, but I have a feeling I probably watched it in the 70s because I did watch all the disaster films. I did watch Airport. I did watch Towering Inferno, and I did watch Poseidon Adventure. And actually, out of all of those, I remember Poseidon Adventure the best. I actually really like that, so I'm with Tony on that one. I really, it was an interesting film. I remember that really captivated me to see that story about the Poseidon Adventure. That just really stuck with me as to how, when they got out of the ship, it was very engaging. So I just really... that one I remember the best of all. So unfortunately, I really don't remember much from this one. I didn't get a chance to watch it this week. But yeah, 70s, right there in the late 70s was all about the disaster flicks. So if I did watch it, it was that long ago, and I just don't remember any details. So unfortunately, I don't really have any comments to make about the picture itself, but it sounds like it was a formulaic kind of almost made-for-TV movie. That's what all those were. Anywho, I'm sorry I missed it, but I might bounce off of other comments, so keep me in the loop. This is KFI-PDS. Back to you, Tom.
Good. Thank you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX, now control for tonight's Afterglow movie net. We're talking about Meteor. Okay, I'll make my comments and then I'll see if there's additional check-ins as we're at the bottom of the list. This film was not that good. In many ways, as far as the plot was concerned, was that it looked like for a made-for-TV movie. And I remember this thing coming out. It was not necessarily a blockbuster, but it was out as very much a motion picture moving forward to be in the Metroplexes as a major motion picture. With that being said, they plugged in a lot of major actors in this film. Well, maybe not major actors. Sean Connery being one, Brian Keith being another, Natalie Wood being another. Who did I forget? Some other folks because they were forgettable in this film. Overall, storyline, took a long time to get to where they were going with the darn thing. I don't even know where to begin as far as how you take a storyline and make it interesting in such a way. The whole thing, to me, seemed kind of hollow. We'll get to the other parts of it having to do with characterization and special effects. The plot itself, this is an age-old story that has been done over and over and over again. The end of the world, potential of destruction, all of that done with people going, ho-hum, we'll get through this. Will we? Well, maybe. We've got $20 left on special effects after we hired all of these actors in the thing. So I was somewhat lackluster in that department. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name. Location is good. Let us know if you saw Meteor. If you didn't, that's okay too. Just let us know you're out there. Please come now. Oh, they're all hiding. Okay, Dave, I'm going to skip you because you didn't see the movie, but if you've got any comments along the way, that's okay. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn, Louisville, we're going to go ahead and talk about, let's see, characterization. Tell us, what did you think about the characterization in this fine film? KC5OZT from KE5ICX.
I have to admit it was nice seeing some familiar faces on the screen, but everybody was just, you might say, predictable, in some ways, and then some not. For one thing, okay, a Russian scientist coming over here without, just by himself, well, of course, with a translator, but you'd expect a bunch of a whole delegation, that was sort of struck me odd, and they're just sort of matter of fact about it, certain it would work, you didn't see any, you didn't see a lot of the calculating and everything that they supposedly did to make sure it would work. They sort of passed over that, and you'd think the president would have been a little more in and had more scenes than he did, but like I say, it was sort of predictable, you know. Some of the interaction between the characters. KC5OZT.
Thank you, Miss Carolyn. Good comments. 80 SE, Chuck, your comments on characterization.
Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo. Most everything that can be said has been said. However, in defense of the movie, I remember watching it and fairly enjoying it. If you watch it in this day and age, yeah, you're going to hate it. The plot drags on, the movie sucks. I mean, anything bad you can say about it, the special effects, everything. But every one of the major actors in the movie, I absolutely loved Sean Connery. I absolutely loved Brian Keith, Martin Landau, Henry Fondu. I loved all those guys, and I remember fairly enjoying the movie back then. To watch it nowadays is painful. Turn it on if you want to take a nap. But outside of that, you know, it was just another disaster movie, and I think by the time this movie came out, the disaster movies had pretty much run their course. So basically it was just a cult of personalities. Sean Connery, Brian Keith, Natalie Wood, who I actually remember thinking she was a real sweetheart in the movie back when I watched it the first time. So anyways, everybody's pretty much summed it up, but if you put it in the context of the time frame it came out versus today, there was no computer graphics back then, so the special effects were pretty much in line with the special effects of the day. So, I don't know, yeah, it's almost unwatchable these days after having watched Star Wars and Alien and all these other great movies that's come out since then. But, yeah, let's give the movie a break, folks. Alpha Delta 5, back to you.
Chuck, and I think that was a fair assessment. This is my personal opinion. N5HYP, Tom, your comments on characterization.
5HYP. Yeah, characters. They were relying again on star power. I don't think the writing was very, very good. You had a stereotypical, overzealous military general who didn't want to trust anybody who wasn't him. You know, Connery played Connery. You know, Natalie Wood was an interesting character in that she did, I guess, a pretty good Russian accent. And Carl Malden was kind of sort of the glue that sort of tried to hold everything together. And Henry Fonda, well, how many times does he get to play president? He has done that several times before. There we go. Characters. What fun. Back to net. N5H5P.
I feel fatigue setting in. We got to find a good movie here somewhere. All right. Well, that's fine. You're right. Everybody got typecast into this film, but we'll talk about that later. Let's see. NT5TM, Tony, your comments on characters.
Yep, I do understand what Chuck is saying, but in part, even by the standards of its time, this movie did not measure up. Movies like Star Wars and Alien and the original Superman with Christopher Reeve were all 70s movies, and they showed what filmmakers could do if they really cared and they put the effort in. Good characters, good story, and special effects that are still impressive because we knew they were done without computers. The characters in this movie were either a mixture of the laughably fake and the boring. The pompous general commanding the subway base who stalks out and then prances back in later, "I was wrong, please forgive me." Mission controllers who are playing chess and having snacks until 10 seconds before the missile launch because they must not have anything to do at their job. I don't know why they were hired. None of the characters feel natural to me. They were... Just about every one of them was a detraction. A movie I would like to recommend, that's what Aaron and I were watching during this, I had this movie going in one ear at one point, was the Cold War movie 13 Days, which is, of course, a vastly newer movie. You're not going to find it on YouTube, not legally at least. Great study of the characters, the real people involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis, to the point where when real historical figures watched this movie, like Sergei Khrushchev and Robert McNamara, well, they said that they took liberties with what each character did, but they felt that it was a very responsible and accurate portrayal of the people. So there's my commercial for that movie, which had great characters that I enjoyed much more than this one, NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. I appreciate your comments to lay bare this movie for less than what it could have been, even in contrast to everything else in 1979. Harvest Gold Comets. Or was it avocado green, or was it eggshell white? We'll move on. Next up, WB5OZL. Miss Brenda, what say you about characterization?
This is WB5OZL. Well, I would like to point out that Natalie Wood, that's not her name, she was born Natalia, because her parents were Russian immigrants. So maybe she had a little Russian speaking in the home, and why she could do the accent, can't tell you about Brian Keith. The characters are just, they were just cardboard cutouts for the most part. I didn't think there was anything interesting or unusual about these characters. And they weren't really believable, in my opinion. I didn't think the dialogue was just horrible, like a lot of movies we've seen, but it sure didn't stand out as being very good. The main character, Orpheus, they call it a meteor. It's actually a meteoroid at that point, when an asteroid goes rogue and starts drifting around. It's a meteoroid. It doesn't become a meteor until it hits our atmosphere. So, and then it's a meteorite when it strikes the ground. Of course, you all know that, because you're here every Saturday night. But Orpheus was a mythological character who was a musician, and he was said to be so good that he could charm all living things and even rocks. I just want to know how you know when a rock has been charmed. Okay, turn it back. WB5OZL.
Good. Thanks, Miss Brenda, W5EBB. David, what say you about plot?
Characters. Well, Dr. Dubov, Brian Keith. I'm sure that Buffy and Jody would be quite surprised to find that their dad, who they thought was a successful civil engineer, was actually a Russian astrophysicist. Now, Brian Keith actually, checking out IMDb, apparently spoke fluent Russian, though I think it was voiced over in this movie, I'm not sure. But he starred in the movie The Russians Are Coming in 1966. So along with Natalia Wood, they were cast, I guess, in part for that reason. Well, Martin Landau, I like him. He's kind of quirky in the range of movies he's been in, but I was just watching Space 1999 on Amazon, and they took it off of Amazon Prime the day after I watched episode 1. And for some reason, I can't explain, I actually liked that show back in the day. Bibi Besh was in this movie from Star Trek The Motion Picture fame, and she was also in The Day After, so she had a flurry of movies in the day, and not too much after that. Henry Fonda, well, he just looked like he wasn't really present in this role, and he probably felt like he'd rather be on Golden Pond with Ethel, watching the loons, teaching their babies to fly. W5EBB.
All right, David, I stand corrected. I said plot. We were talking about characterization, then you went in on everything. And I agree with you. Henry Fonda. Jeez, that's a great comment. Yeah, as a president, he kind of phoned it in, and the loons, Ethel Thayer. Sounds like I'm lisping, doesn't it? On Golden Pond. All right, fine. Next up, KG5BZWJ. Your comments on characterization.
This is KG5BZW. what can I say? Carl Malden reminded me of the American Express spokesperson that he was during the 70s, and that's kind of what he played in this film, and I actually got a kick out of that. Not that it was, money related, but maybe it's just a Carl Malden thing that he did. He was the kind of character he often played or something, but there just wasn't much. I thought I would enjoy Sean Connery more as how he was, and I honestly, I think I've already said the one actor I kind of enjoy watching. KG5BZW.
Very good, Jay. Thanks for your comments. KF5PDS, Miss Billy, you're still in the loop. What do you think about characterization? I'll open it up a little bit and ask you, what do you think about end of the world comets or asteroids coming and destroying the Earth? What should people do? What would be a very good characterization in a movie or television series? Which I think there's one up doing that right now. I'm putting you on the spot, but what do you think? KF5PDS from KE5ICX.
Well, I mean, natural disaster films, especially the meteor type of the genre, I think the best film that to me that characterizes that was Deep Impact, because you had the scientists, you have the scientific approach, you have the running and screaming. You're going to have all types. I think if they play it too cool all across the board, that's not realistic, because there's got to be some panic factor. It's got to build good suspense, which it doesn't sound like this picture did. I was reading some reviews of it. It said that the suspense was sludgy, which I like that word, sludgy. You've got to do a good build-up to have a good payoff. I don't know. It takes all types to balance, to have a well-balanced characterization. I think it's always good when you have the scientific side addressed, and then you have just the everyday, home life, what person in that capacity is thinking, feeling. So I think if you have a film, in order to do it well, you have to kind of rotate among key characters, which someone mentioned B.B. Besh, she was in The Day After, and I thought that film did that excellently, rotating through different types of people's lives, all in parallel as they move towards this one singular event. And I think that meteor films, when done right, do this as well. You look at all different lifestyles and walks of life in parallel as they all converge to this single moment. And if you build that up well, you can have a spectacular payoff, especially if you have really good special effects. So for me, the film that best did that was Deep Impact as far as meteor films goes. To me, I thought Armageddon was too Hollywood. They Hollywooded it up a little bit more, and I thought Deep Impact hit more of the realism to me. It just made me feel more feels when I watched Deep Impact. So this film, it's unfortunate when feature films feel like made-for-TV movies. And if I saw it, it probably was on television, because all the other disaster ones that I mentioned earlier, I saw those on TV, probably on a Friday night movie night, sitting around the TV at home. But I think that's, to me, makes good ingredients for a meteor film, so the characteristics that I mentioned. And it sounds like this film was missing some magic. It had a lot of great actors and some heavy hitters, no mistake there, but I think they were missing the magic of Jason Robards. Jason Robards! Why didn't they use Jason Robards unless he was more of an 80s staple? I think he was late 70s too, because he was in The Day After, which was right at the cusp of 80, 81. So maybe it just wasn't the time for Jason Robards, but it sounds like if they could have had some Robards magic in there, it would have played off of Sean Connery well, and maybe would have made a better film. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, I'll throw it back to you. This is KFI PDS. Back to net.
Thank you, Miss Billy. And you brought a lot of good points in on all of this when it happens to be about characters and characterizations. I'll make comments later. Let's see, WG5TNF, Johnny, your comments on this film. Well, you said that you didn't see it, but I'll cut you some slack on this. What do you think about disaster films with meteors, meteorites, and meteorizations? Go ahead, Johnny. I think he ran for the hills. That's okay. It's understandable. We kept you in the loop, but that's okay. Just stay in the loop. We'll talk about our next film eventually here. This is KE5 ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about Meteor. I'll take additional check-ins. You don't necessarily have to have any comments. Just say you're out there. Please come in your call sign, your name, location. Let me know if you saw Meteor from 1979. Please come now. I got a good carrier, but no audio. You want to try one more time? Please come now. Let me go to the top of the list here. KC50. Oh, well, let me tell you what you're going to be talking about, or your comments. Special effects or not so special effects on this fine film. Did you like them? Did you hate them? This is 1979, so you have to kind of like pace it out a little bit. What was really good or not so good? This wasn't supposedly a major motion picture, although it came out of American International, so they had a limited budget, but were able to capitalize on disaster films. So thinking about that and what you saw on screen, I'll go ahead and ask KC50ZT, Miss Carolyn, your comments on the special effects.
Okay, as far as the meteor and the comet and everything, it seemed like they didn't emphasize that as much, but I have to admit there were some good effects, the avalanche, I don't know, some of it may have been stock footage on all of it. And then yet some of it was original. I mean, an original idea, tidal waves, that's a standard in some movies. Avalanche during a time, you don't, that's such an unusual idea, and I don't know, can't think of all the snow they had to move to do that. And, let me reset. I have to admit, the sliver hitting New York, the one scene that you might say really hit me, was seeing it slice through the World Trade Center. That brought back memories of that morning. And I have to admit, that was, well, I don't want to say moving or effective. In other words, it's effective. Even though this was long before they knew that would happen. But the rest of it, it was pretty predictable, slicing through the buildings, different other buildings, and I have to admit I wasn't expecting the flooding in the tunnels, but they were so covered in, I can't think what they covered them in to make it look so, in the mud, that it covered them. I have to admit that was odd, but I guess well done for the makeup. But let me reset. And the missiles hitting the meteor was almost an anticlimactic. You didn't really see the meteor itself breaking up, but that, like I said, that was sort of an anticlimax. But there were some good and then some not so good effects. But I think a lot of it was stock footage, Rosette T.
I don't disagree. I have my comments coming up. 85, Sierra Echo. Chuck, your comments on the SPX.
Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo. Like I say, they didn't have the computer graphics and stuff. And technically speaking, just like ham radio, a communication did take place. You got the point. Not overly exciting on the special effects, but a communication, however, did take effect, so it's in the logbook. And towards the end of the net, if I may, I would like to offer a recommendation to the group for a movie that most have probably never seen. It's actually pretty good. Back to you, back to the net.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm putting in here an yeah, that's it, for a recommendation for a movie. And I got you here on the list. Let's see. Next up is N5HYP. Tom, I know you have comments on the special effects, or not so special. Go ahead. N5HYP from KE5ICX.
Okay, KE5ICX and the net. This is N5HYP. I did want to actually say, well, first of all, as Brenda said, they spent $16 million on a movie and only took in 8. Well, I mean, probably half of the $16 million was star salaries, so they didn't have a lot to spend on effects. And even for 1979, during the fact that you had Star Wars and other things like that out there that did a lot better with a lot less, no, they were pretty marginal. I mean, I'll tell you the thing that was overbearing for me was the music. The music, for crying out loud. The opening credits for the music. Every time a name showed up, you heard and then unlike good movies with good scoring, that the scoring kind of takes you along with it. Every time you had a different scene, you just had a different style of music in the background. You always had the exact same musical theme every time you showed an image of the asteroid coming at you. It sounded kind of like monstrous. You showed the Russian rockets and you had Russian music. You showed the American rockets and you had high-tempo American patriotic march music. It just drove me nuts because it was, so just patchy and splotchy and didn't really have any real great overarching themes to it. So it was poorly done, and it basically took the effects and made them even worse. Back to net from N5HYP.
No, you couldn't have said that, but it's okay. I'll beat you up later. NT5TM, Tony, your comments on the special effects, or not so. Please come now.
I have to thank Tom and 5H5P. Thank you, Tom, KE5I6, for being net control, but thank you, Tom and 5H5P, for hitting that on the music. It was especially odious during those ICBM launches, the bombastic pseudo-American march and the sort of Russian-esque music that wasn't really very Russian-sounding. Wasn't like they played the Great Gate of Kiev or something. It was annoying. And they couldn't even buff the plastic shine off of their model missiles before they filmed them. Couldn't they have painted those models? Would that have taken so much time? I really feel an urge to be merciless to these effects because they were... I understand that this was not a special effects, perhaps, based movie the way, say, Alien was. But this cost more than Alien. I think, as others have said, they must have spent all the money on actor salaries. Really creative, hardworking people in the pre-CGI era could do a surprisingly good job with what they had. 2001 came out in 1968, and much of that still holds up extremely well. You really could do the job well without computers if you had the right skills. But apparently all those people were busy during filming of this movie doing something more interesting. So, yeah, the effects did nothing but detract. And the music was annoying, too. NT5TM.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Okay. We've melded in special effects and music. That's okay. I have comments, but I'll wait until the end. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda, your comments on the special effects at L from KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you. This is WB50ZL. A lot of stock footage. It didn't add to it. I objected to it. A lot of the instrumentation, computers and all that wasn't necessarily believable. And the spaceships weren't too bad, and the missiles, that was not that bad. But on the whole, I think it just goes along with everything else in this turkey. It's just, not enough, not good. It's, they phoned it in. It's just, it's just typical of the entire movie. Usually in these turkeys, at least we get some good airplane shots. We didn't even have much of that this time. If they're using stock footage from the military. I think I'm done. I think that's all I want to say about it. It's late. I think I'm about ready to go to bed pretty soon. This is WB50ZL.
You're checking out already? Well, before you disappear, I found that the Soviet Boeing 737-200, oh wait, it wasn't. It was the 707 300 Intercontinental, I think is what it was, that you dissed there. But that's okay. Let me move on. Let's see. Next up. Yes, I know. You just sent me a message. W5EBB. David, your comments on the special effects. Please come now.
This guy who did the special effects, his name was put up on the credits at the beginning of the movie. I didn't recognize it, and for good reason. He's no Douglas Trumbull. He did special effects for Close Encounters and Blade Runner and many Andromeda Strain, lots of movies. And if you really want to see how special effects should be done and could be done in this era, in 2001: A Space Odyssey, of course, just check out some of his work. There's a YouTube video called The Trumbull Effect. It's a short video that's a compendium of a lot of the effects in the movies from this era, and that's how you do special effects. Now, one of my pet peeves in movies in special effects is when they don't do the physics properly. I'm not talking quantum mechanics or relativistic effects. I'm talking basic mechanics of physics, F equals ma. The ICBMs launching from those yellow things that were holding them, they look like they were being released for a docking maneuver. They went out very, very slowly. They didn't launch in the speed that they should have. The initial red balls of light that were the initial fragments that hit the Earth, there were some scenes where they were actually shown flying in an upward trajectory along the horizon, along the Earth, which I don't think is correct. And I think it was George Lucas who said, kind of ironically, special effects, you shouldn't just focus for too long on a particular effect, although he did in some scenes. But if the effect is good, that's fine. But if the effect is bad, don't linger on it. And they did that so often, as Tony said, they look like pieces of plastic, which is what they were. And every disaster movie, a good one, has to have something falling from the ceiling and crashing down on people, such as in the Poseidon Adventure, or maybe it was Towering Inferno, with the chandelier falling. Well, you had two scenes where you had some piece of architecture that looked similar falling from the ceiling, so that was on par for disaster sequences. You got to have something falling from the ceiling. And that's where the effects were really, I think, better, was just in the disaster type effects, but not in these space effects at all. W5EBB.
All right, thanks, David. Very good comments, and I have circled and asterisked some stuff. All right, this is KE5ICX. KT5BZW. Jay, go ahead and make your comments. I'm going to duck out for a second. I'll be right back, but I'm turning you up to 11. Go ahead, Jay. Your comments on special effects.
Okay, this is KG5BZW. I'm going to go ahead and say there were some good effects in here. I thought the even if it was stock footage, some of the destruction sequences were actually put to good effect. I like Carolyn. Admittedly, this is, the after 9/11 kind of feeling of seeing something go through the Twin Tower. It had an effect on me, but I thought that was actually decently done. But and of course the inside scenes where they where stuff fell on just the set. Let's just say the set crumbles, but it doesn't look like a set crumbling. It looks kind of like, at least like a lot of special effects of something that I thought I'm not doing it justice. So let me reset. But yeah, those the integral part of the film, what the focus of the film, which is what actually happens in space, it's like they got somebody that didn't know how to do photography. The pieces of plastic. I thought the models were good. I disagree with EBV about the docking procedure because I don't know that you necessarily want to undock from that vehicle quickly, but everything was slow. The darn models had bokeh effects where they shouldn't have bokeh effects. It's like you're about 3 inches in front of the model, literally, with your own eye. So that's not how you do it. You take a zoom lens and narrow f-stop and, at least make it look like it's further away than it is. And stuff like that just really kind of annoy me. And the general blurry blobs, well, maybe they could have figured how to do that any better. And it often there were just times that it felt like I was watching a 50s or 60s B film. But like I said, there were good effects too. So other than that, I think others have captured what needs to be said. So this is KG5BZW.
Has left the building.
Thanks. I had to get my transmit pedal here. It flew underneath the chair. I agree with you totally, Jay, about the special effects and how they could have made it better. But I'll wait until the end. KF5 PDS. Miss Billy, you didn't see the movie, but what are your comments as far as special effects when it comes to natural disasters, meteorites, and all of that? You're an expert when it comes to meteors and meteorites. Your comments, please.
Well, I remember at least a year or so ago, it was close to the beginning of Afterglow when we had the discussion about the importance of special effects and what makes a good sci-fi movie, and to me in the the meteor genre, it's like you've got to have good special effects. I mean, if you build it up and build it up and build it up to a crappy effect, that just really it's infuriating. I've seen plenty of horror films that do the same thing. It's like you build it up, and then you get to the monster reveal. If it's a crappy monster, then it's very disappointing and angering to some point. I forget which movie it was, but there was some horror film. They built it up, and then they showed maybe it was Robot Monster, where they showed the gorilla suit and the diver's helmet, and that just was like, they built this up for an hour, and then we get this. And so same thing with these meteor movies. If you build it up and build it up and build it up, and if you've done a great job building up suspense and then show a crappy effect, then it just destroys the whole build-up. So to me, it's essential that you have good special effects. And it sounds like, they used a lot of stock footage because they spent so much money on all the actors. If they had toned down, it sounds like if you had maybe less bigger names, spending less money there, put more money towards special effects makes for a better picture. So for me, the quality versus quantity ratio got sadly out of whack, sounds like. But yeah, for me with meteor films, you've got to have a good shot of the meteor or several shots. And again, I'll go back, I think Deep Impact did it very well. So that to me is the go-to meteor flick for me. But I guess that's all I have to say. I'm kind of running out of things. So I'll return it to you, Tom. This is KF5PDS, back to net.
All right, thank you, Miss Billy. I have additional comments. I actually agree with some of the comments. KF5BZW made a very good comment about the fact that the special effects paint the stuff. The rockets that were involved, the missiles, the way they were going to take the pads and point them, the launch pads, out into space. What was a redo of the, what was it, the 1/44 scale Saturn V rockets. They didn't even paint them so they looked real. They looked like plastic. Very bad. I agree. They spent the money on the stars, the actors, and all of that, and they had a number of them, which should have been interesting, but as it turns out, we're taken out of it, the whole thing, with the, what I call the 555-1212 in a movie, which is, if you see the phone number 555-1212, you know you're not in reality. You're taken out of the picture. And in this case, the special effects did exactly that. They were so bad that it was unbelievably unrealistic. Another thing, too, was we had the Soviet missiles, we had the American missiles headed for the meteorite. Let me reset. They fly side by side as they head to the meteor. This big, huge meteor that apparently isn't very big, actually, probably about 2 feet wide. The rockets are 18 inches from tip to stern. All of it is just terrible when compared with, say, Star Wars or 2001, which is what Billy brought up. I just totally take it out of the moment. And then they had special effects that weren't so special, having to do with stock footage and all of that. It was, through and through, an American international film, their last gasp before I think they went out of business or stopped doing anything of any real relevance. So in the end, I was not impressed with the film at all. So let's see. Additional, I circled something here. Let me see. Oh, I did that. Paint the plastic is what I did. All right. Any final check-ins? Please come now, and then I'll take final check-ins. Any or final comments? Any additional check-ins? Come now. Final comments, please come now.
5 EBB. MT5.
Okie dokie, I've got two, W5EBB and NT5TM. David, W5EBB, you're first.
Well, regarding the music, there was one interesting part, and that was when the scene of the meteor was shown several times. You had a particular guitar, electric guitar, very resonant, single notes that were exactly the same notes, the same tonality as from Star Trek the Motion Picture when the Klingons were first attacking the cloud, when it goes, bom, bom, exactly the same. And Star Trek the Motion Picture was released 2 months after this movie. Of course, the music composers were different, but those notes were exactly the same. Now, with regard to the Twin Towers, yes, and I think there's a mock-up, I don't think it's a real movie poster, which shows for Meteor, the movie, the Twin Towers, being hit. And it was very eerie to look at that. And actually, there was a scene just before that in this movie that was foreshadowing it also, where it showed the sun moving between the two towers and across the two towers slowly and just near the top, just below the tops of the buildings where they were actually hit.
W5FC.
And one of our prior Afterglow movies, I might add, Starship Invasions, had the same scene where a spaceship, the one target that it hit was a tall building, and it was also shown burning, again, about 10 floors down from the top. So a lot of these predictive things are, I guess, news of the weird, you could say. And one last comment about news of the weird of this movie. I think that there's sort of a poltergeist curse which happened to both Natalie Wood and to Brian Keith. Natalie Wood died 2 years after this movie was filmed under suspicious circumstances. Brian Keith from a suicide years later, which was also questioned. And Douglas Trumbull was so, he was shaken to the point where he retired in 1983 when she died during the filming of Brainstorm, which he was doing the visual effects for. So this movie had some bizarre elements in it. And the last line of this movie was Brian Keith and Natalie Wood at the top of the airplane, Brian Keith saying to her, "I think you'll come back one day." And she replies, "Perhaps." And that's the end of the movie. Weird. W5EBB.
Interesting, David, and I don't disagree with any of those comments. You brought a really interesting soliloquy here on that. Lawrence Rosenthal was the composer on this one, and love him or hate him, he did, I think, an interesting job on this. The music for Meteor does show up on anthology series albums with science fiction, so I think it's finally dropped off, but his opening sequence music has been there. As far as some of the tonal parts, I agree. Yep, it definitely came into play. And then lastly, your comments about Natalie Wood and all is rather poignant. I hadn't put those things together. Thanks. Appreciate your comments. I really do. I love it when people bring in comments that actually provide a third, fourth, fifth dimension to things at times that are really cool, and I think you did so, and I really appreciate it. Finally, tonight, NT5TM, Tony, your comments. You were a little staticky into the repeater, but go ahead, Tony.
Erin did not see the movie, but she did kind of hear some of my comments about it, things I mentioned to her before the net started. And she was struck by the fact that although the Twin Towers were very new at the time this movie was made, in films and TV shows, they very, very quickly became a shorthand for "look, we're in New York." Although, from what she found, to New Yorkers, they were not thought of nearly as such an iconic architectural symbol of New York. And I began to wonder, and this is a research project I will investigate later, just how often they were destroyed in movies and television shows. as a symbol for, I guess as an alternative to the Statue of Liberty as we got at the end of Planet of the Apes. The other comment I had was more general, not as cool as anything anyone else said. Man, I may have to go on strike. I don't think I can watch another clunker until we get a good one. NT5TM. Thank you for being net control, though. It was an interesting discussion. The discussion was more fun than the movie.
Very good, Tony. This is KE5ICX. I apologize. We had clunkers, too many. Any final comments before we go on to what will be our movie for next week? I shudder to think anyone's thoughts, but anyone who would like to check in or final comments, come now. Hearing none. The movie I had selected, and I put down the wrong date, I guess, it'd be 8/11/18, will be the 1956 film, The Indestructible Man. I hope it's a good film. I've gotten some input on films. I'm going to go ahead and put them in. And we'll get some decent films going forward. I'm sorry, I just put stuff out there. Some of these films I've never seen before, but I have emails here. I will replenish the supply, and if I will preview Indestructible Man. If it's that bad, I will find something better from your list and contributions. But I have to admit, at 12:15, we actually had a lot to talk about on this terrible film. It may be the longest time we've ever talked about a film. I don't know. Irony can be a pretty ironic thing when it comes to thinking through these things, as quoted by Captain James R. Kirk. Yeah, he was James R. Kirk in an episode. William Shatner. Okay, that's it. Final comments? Come now. That's it. We'll see you next week at the same time, the same bat channel. This is KE5ICX. I'm closing out the net at, 0116 local time. 7:30, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. 0016. Never mind.